Freebies has become a point of contention between the union government and the non-BJP ruled states. In fact, this matter has now reached the Supreme Court of India. In fact, the Aam Aadmi Party, the DMK and the YSR Congress have also joined the arguments in the Supreme Court. So to discuss about this briefly, we have Tamil Nadu's Finance Minister, Palanivel Thiagarajan, with us for a quick interview. We will talk to him. Hi, sir. Yeah. How are you, sir?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing good, yeah. So, is it possible to differentiate the terms, freebies and social welfare schemes? Can there be a proper distinction between these two terms?
Now, first of all, the word freebie doesn't really mean that much, right? If the question is the government provides some good or service for free, then every government everywhere in the world does some of it. In fact, the more advanced the country, the more of it they do. So in extreme cases like in the Scandinavian countries where they have a huge revenue surplus normally and are running with oil money or other things and a very social welfare model, they provide not just free education, free health, they provide free maternity, free paternity leave for months, sometimes for a year, using state support. So it is the job of the government to provide welfare and public goods and services of high quality, particularly those goods and services that can reduce the rich-poor or the well-off and not well-off gap. The real question from a fiscal perspective, from a management of the economy and the management of the budget perspective ought to be, how much money do you spend on current expenses, like you give the cash and don't get any return, at least not in accounting books. And how much do you spend on capital expenses like building roads or ports or universities or water systems, which will continue to give you return. But here again, things get a bit messy because accounting is accounting. Then reality is something different. For example, giving free food to children in schools is considered a revenue expense because you just write it off this year. You buy the food, somebody consumes it, it's gone. That's revenue expenditure. In fact, it is actually an investment in that human being. The odds of a child growing up with proper nutrition, with proper education increase substantially if you provide food in school and use that as a draw to get children to school. The same way you might be spending what you say is capital expenditure. But for example, if you're building a collector office or you're building a taluk office, in fact you won't get any return for it. So that's considered capital expenditure because you're building an asset which is a building. Here it's considered revenue expenditure because you're providing food to children. But in fact, I would say this expenditure is investment, which will provide returns for decades. And this investment is not going to give me any return at all. Right? It's just a slightly better building. There's not increasing the productivity or the access or anything because there was a collector office before. Now I got a better collector office. So it's not easily definable and it's not that easily debatable because a lot of politics gets into the debate. So I don't think this is a constructive debate in the way it has been going around the country right now. It's kind of a low politics debate without much substance or real policy implications.
So, basically, it's whether it's the union government or the state government, it's the responsibility of any government to provide good education, good health care, good sanitary services, etc. So, can they be called as free, like if it's given free to the public?
No, I'm telling you explicitly, the term means nothing. It's not, whether it's provided free or at a low cost or a subsidized and all that is not the indication of whether it's a freebie. The freebie itself is a meaningless term. Let me try and take the debate to some place where it should have some meaning. And this is not a political issue. It's not a BJP versus DMK or YSR Congress issue. The profound issues here are 3 or 4. The first issue is, who is responsible for spending the money of the people? In most democracy, that is the elected House of Representatives. In the United States, which has a presidential form of democracy, it's the Senate and the House, what they call collectively Congress, the elected members. In the United Kingdom, which has a parliamentary style democracy like ours, it is the parliament. In Delhi, it is the parliament. In Tamil Nadu, it is the legislature. These are the people endowed in the constitution with the right to both receive and spend the government's money, right? Taxation, etc. Most countries, it is not in the scope of democracy that a Supreme Court gets to decide, or any court, how the money should be spent. So that's the first substantive point I want to make. The second substantive point I want to make is that the Constitution allows very clearly for different but equal levels of government. One is the union, one is the state. In each of these, we have certain powers to raise revenues and to spend them. Those powers cannot be crossed just because of a political party. That is to say, neither is a DMK MLA of it is a DMK MP of South Chennai have any control or access into how the government of Tamil Nadu's budget is set. Nor does the MP of Varanasi have any control or say into how the government of Uttar Pradesh's budget is set. Only the MLAs get to have that vote. No MLA gets to say how the union budget is set. Only the MPs get to have that vote. So there is a clear separation in the Constitution, and it doesn't have any room for federally elected, union elected MPs, even if they become ministers or prime minister. At the beginning they were an MP, that's how they got to be there. No MP gets to say anything, right? So least of all a Varanasi MP telling the government of Tamil Nadu how is the least kind of actionable, because even the DMK MP of South Chennai in a DMK elected state government doesn't have even any say in the state finances, right? So that's the second substantive issue. The third substantive issue is, in fact, the union government controls state spending and state budgets in ways beyond what was originally envisioned or practiced in the past.
So that you are telling after the BJP came to power or before that?
Yeah, some of it was in the Constitution before, but especially after the FRBM Act of 2003 and after the current BJP regime came to power, they have picked up another clause of the Constitution that was never enforced before, but now they're using it. And they effectively control the state's borrowing and state's finances in ways that have never been done before 2014. So there's not that much room left for any debate. You see, the government of India gets to decide how much we can borrow, gets to decide whether our deficit's 3% or 4% or 3.5%, even though according to the Constitution that's not the case. In the Constitution, the union government sets its own and the state government sets its own. But using 293(3) article of the Constitution, the union government says that whenever a state owes us money, we get to let it borrow or not borrow outside. So using that, they put borrowing limits on every state every year. So already the union government completely controls the state's total borrowing and total fiscal book. Now if you say, within that borrowing, how is the money spent? Then that is not just anti-constitutional, that is not just unenvisioned by anybody, it is clear outright authoritarianism or dictatorship. Okay. If people who are elected to run the union government start interfering, and that's not in politics, I'm saying it would be equally bad were they to tell the UP Chief Minister how he should spend money, as telling the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister how he should spend money. That's exactly why in the BJP, forget the differences between the Prime Minister and DMK. The UP government is run by a BJP majority administration. Yes? Yeah. In that government, the Chief Minister has announced free bus rides 10 days back. Is
so
that
can
acceptable?
That be called as a welfare scheme or a freebie?
And is that acceptable to is that part of the Revdi culture? I don't know. Right? So that's why I'm saying this debate has a lot of noise and very little enlightenment, very little actual substance to it.
So you believe that this is something that needs to be debated, but not in this way. That's what
I'm not sure there's much to be debated. If there's anything left to be debated, it is whether the union should have as much control as it does on the states. Because, for example, the FRBM Act says the union should keep within 3-4%. But the parliament can amend the FRBM Act and the union can spend as it wants. Last year, the deficit is closer to 7%. Equally, we have the right to amend our FRA Act, the 2003 FRA Act of Tamil Nadu, and we can say we should go to 5 or 6 or 7%. But we have a problem, because when the union government does the change in the bill, it can do whatever it wants. There's no second check above it. When we do the change in the bill, the first thing is that bill has to go and get the signature of the governor or the president. Now these offices have all become politicized. They were not intended to be, but the governor of Tamil Nadu thinks he's some extra constitutional king of the country. He gets to decide which bills to sign and not sign. Completely anti-democratic, while actually to the concept of democracy, he gets to decide what he wants to sign and not. What if he refuses to sign the bill? So first control. Second problem, even were we to get the signature and pass the bill and get it actually implemented into law, Still they'll use 293.3 and say you cannot take money. Even though my legislature allows me to borrow 5%, they'll give me an artificial number and say you can't borrow more than that. Why is that? Because even were I not a net borrower from the union, which for the most of Tamil Nadu's history we were not, other than minor, the way we get international loans, the way we get loans from the World Bank or KFW or JICA or ADB, all those are written as loans to the union back to the states. So if we get, let's say, a loan from ADB for the Chennai Metro, that loan comes as if it's a loan from ADB to the government of India, and then a parallel reverse loan from the government of India to Tamil Nadu, and vice versa, the payments go back. So at least on paper, we will never be not in debt to the government of India. Correct? Or we should stop taking World Bank and ADB aid. So the union has every control on us already at a macro level. It cannot, we cannot be profligate beyond what the union decides in total.
So you're telling that the union government, not only the union government, any central institution is not having any right to interfere into the into the way state elected party is functioning.
Because they can control the overall book, right? They have so much control. They are the only ones unaccountable to anybody. But the states are accountable every day to the union government already. At the macro level, at the book, what is the total debt? Now if they start saying you can only spend your money this way, that is completely anti-constitutional. Nowhere in the constitution does it get to say that the powers of the MLAs of Tamil Nadu who pass the budget can be superseded or usurped or broken or replaced by the power of some administrator in Delhi or some department in Delhi.
Do you see a hidden motive? Because the Gujarat elections are coming and the Aam Aadmi Party is very well going to contest the election, and they've announced some free power, water, etc.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I can't attribute motives to people, right? I just know that the debate is A, meaningless in its current form, B, not necessary given how much control the union government already has on state governments, and C, it is not talking about the nuances of public policy or fiscal management or the public's money, right? There are nuances, there are nuanced, thoughtful discussions to be had on these subjects, right? We do it all the time inside our assembly, inside our party, inside our cabinet. We change schemes all the time. Remember, we had a scheme that was Tali Kathangam and money for weddings and talis. And we've stopped that scheme and we've made it into a scholarship scheme for those who continue studies. Those are thoughtful, meaningful debates. So in centre's
definition, that will also be called as a freebie?
I don't know. I don't understand what they call, because they also give a lot of things. If they give it, it's not a freebie. If I give it, it's a freebie. It's a meaningless debate. That's all.
All right, sir. Apart from this freebie culture, I just wanted to ask you another question. That RBI governor has yesterday told that the retail inflation has become uncomfortably and unacceptably high, and that he's also proposing an idea to increase the repo rate like by 50 basic points. So how do you see this, sir?
I think the RBI governor is probably behind the curve. I think if he's saying it, it must be that the numbers are really bad and his data, which he can see, which we can't see, must be even worse than what we can see. Because, you see, the job of the RBI is to act independent of the government and manage monetary policy at arm's length. The RBI today, particularly under this governor, who is not an economist but a former bureaucrat, has become like an extension of the government of India. They are focused on maintaining the market levels, on providing dividends, of managing the dollar-rupee ratio, this, that. They have half a dozen mandates that are not strictly within the monetary policy that was envisioned as the sole mandate. I have no problem if they're brilliant enough to do 6 things, but the problem is these are all conflicting objectives. When you start taking up conflicting objectives, you can't do your original job right or well, right? So in that sense, I would agree that retail inflation is very high. I would agree that the RBI is behind the curve. I would agree that they have to do dramatic things. I would agree that a 50 basis point hike may be necessary. He has better data than me. But I would preface all of that with saying the RBI has not been properly focused on its sole objective of monetary policy and inflation management, and has extended its scope of activities to other things that compromised its independence and its ability to work on its primary objective without conflict of interest.
So from what you're talking, I can understand that you're telling that basically all the independent institutions are in some way intruded.
Completely.
By an external factor.
Yeah, that's from the Election Commission to the RBI to the CBI to the ED to you pick any institution. And you see what most people don't realize, at least I think, at least within the BJP right-wing ecosystem, don't realize that while you may see this as a short-term gain because somehow you think your party, your government, your prime minister now sits supreme, it is sowing the seeds of destruction for the country.
When we talk about GST, like you're someone who are against the idea of GST itself. So, but when you talk about the GST Council, so apart from the the council under its under its formation, so do you think there's any flaw with the functioning of the council, like the execution part I'm talking about? Is it?
Look, I think there are many flaws. I don't want to say this again because I get accused of all kinds of things. Apart from politics, I'm saying even when the UPA conceived of it, the GST had all kinds of problems with it. It wasn't that easy and it wasn't that clear it was good. I'll say one very good thing and I'll say one very bad thing. The very good thing is once the council is convened and everybody is seated in the room, the Honorable Union Finance Minister runs that meeting as impartially and as neutrally and as graciously as is possible. Everybody gets a chance to speak. Everybody gets to speak as long as they want. They don't cut anybody back. She's always courteous. Everybody's voice is heard. Every reasonable issue is taken up. All those are the positives. Mind you, the agenda is not set by collective decision. It's only set by the union government. So it's not as if we're going into an open meeting or anything like that. But the bad thing I would say is for a system, no matter the 1,000 faults in it from its conception to its implementation to its execution, it could still be made to work a lot better if we collectively, the council members, the supporting staff, the GSTN, all of us spend more time and attention on this. Problem is we all have day jobs. I'm a finance minister, I have 4 portfolios. Union Finance Minister has all kinds of, the convener is the revenue secretary, he has a day job. So the very construct that something as important as the GST can be run as a kind of part-time side job by people with such demanding daytime jobs, I think is basically wrong.
Sir, when you talk about TransitCo and the Transport Department, 2 major departments in the in the state of Tamil Nadu, so it's very evident that both of them are under some kind of loss. And will the Finance Ministry intervene and do some kind of relief for them in this matter? Because apparently, of course, both the TransitCo and the Transport Department are under loss, and it's getting it's getting to worse from bad. It's very evident. So what is our plan as far as these 2 departments are concerned? Because both are important departments, both are relevant to public in a huge way. So what are we going to do?
I don't want to go too far beyond my brief, right? I would say that obviously as the Finance Minister I have both input and participation. The Chief Minister has been extremely supportive of the Finance Department's views and my views. We understand the limitations, and I have spoken about them myself when I was an opposition MLA. So I can't change my position just because my seat changes. I'm not like that. Some people are like that, but I'm not like that. So they're both in need of serious reform. Some of them are already underway, you may have noticed, but I don't want to talk too much about it because it's not my department. But I would say, let me put it this way. 7 years in a row of record, or 8 years in a row of record revenue deficits. When I first came, I thought it would take us 5 years to bring it back to revenue neutral. I'm now convinced that in 3 years, I'll come back to the revenue neutral state we used to be before 2014. That is my department, my job. I get to control every file. So that I'll speak that way. The rest of it, though the Finance Department has a big say, and though we have also the HR department, which I'm the minister for, has a big say, and we've done a lot of change. We've changed the nature of recruiting, the nature of financing, the nature of project approval. We've changed a lot of things, but I don't want to talk too much about it because it's not my day job. The respective ministers will drive the change. But I say it will not happen in 3 years like it did for us because there's all kinds of other issues. There's jobs and pensions and unions and all involved. But my best guess is that if not in 5 years, then in 10 years, those are also the situation can be corrected and brought back to providing people with a free or cost-effective service without losing as much money as we lose now, because a lot of it is wasteful spending, it's leakage. I don't want to get into it. There's corruption, there's malfeasance, but everybody knows those things. But those need to be fixed by the department ministers. It's not my job, so I won't talk too much about that.
So DMK and poll promises. In fact, right now, a few minutes before, you were telling that DMK has fulfilled a lot of poll promises within 1 year duration. But still, there is a constant attack from the opposition, especially the BJP, that the DMK has not fulfilled any of its poll promises, like almost half of them.
I don't know about any and all that. I agree. So we both agree we have fulfilled almost half of them. We still got half. I'm saying, and I say it very bluntly, almost anything the Tamil Nadu BJP says is like white noise to me. It's irrelevant because they're not thoughtful, meaningful people that say reasonable things. So I just ignore it. I don't have time. I'm a busy man. I got a lot of work to do. But I say it a slightly different way, and I give you this challenge. You're a reporter. Go and look at the last 2 elections poll promises of the BJP government in Delhi. Look at their poll promises in UP, in Gujarat, and other states. Look at the poll promises of the ADMK in 2006 and 2011 and 2016, 11 and 16. In fact, I'll go one step further. Go and look at the poll promises of the DMK itself in 2006.
Okay.
I guarantee you that no other chief minister or prime minister in India has fulfilled more poll promises in less time than my chief minister has done. Okay. I challenge you. Take that as an assignment. Go and get, and I don't want some random buffoon from the local BJP's word for it. You go and do some real research. Definitely. Right? If you come back and show me somebody who has a better track record, then I'll admit that we need to work faster. But as of today, I'm saying no other chief minister in Indian political history, no other prime minister, at least in the last 25 years, has fulfilled more poll promises in less time than my chief minister. Now, for people like the ones you talked about, who are not even worth, as I say, listening to, for them to say, why has the chief minister, Thiru M.K. Stalin, not done more? This is classic, we say in Tamil, no? Anjang classla fail anavan kekran, yen PhD, no, rendavathu PhD vaangalaanu kekran. Ennanga idella? You understand? Should I say it in English for you? It's like somebody who has failed 5th class coming and asking, why does the guy have only 1 PhD? Why doesn't he have a 2nd PhD?
Okay.
Right? Completely irrelevant, random noise coming from people who have zero basis.
So you're telling that they're doing it for the sake of attacking?
What do I know? I mean, listen, I'm an educated, thoughtful person. What do I know goes in the minds of all this riffraff? How do I know who says what?
So my final question, sir. Yeah. So in many of your previous interviews, you have told that many subsidies are going to people who are actually not in need of them.
Not
so,
many, some.
Yeah, some. Yeah, not many. Of course, not in a larger level, but in a small level. Yeah. So have we come up with a mechanism to distinguish between who needs it and who doesn't need it?
Yes,
is the work underway?
Yes. We're doing a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to reveal too much. But the only way we have been able to bring the deficit down, revenue deficit down, and I'm saying we'll get there in 2 years without anybody feeling the pain, and we'll get to implement the CM's, vision of 1,000 rupees per eligible woman head of house, is because we're cutting all this wasteful spending down, right? So if you remember, I'll just give you 2 public statistics because I don't want to give you the private data. The public statistic, when the CM announced the gold loan waiver, he set aside up to 6,000 crores for it, the jewel loan waiver. But in the end, we only found about 4,600 crores of actual eligible people. Okay. The rest was a lot of fraud and malfeasance and wrong counting. And in fact, I don't want to give the number away, but the original bill that came to us was much, much higher than 6,000 even. So we made the prediction that it won't be more than 6,000 based on preliminary assessment.
And that was much less.
Then it turned out it was only 4,600. Now just imagine, 1,400 crores on one program we were able to save. Compare that, the annual budget, let's say, given to sports development is a few hundred crores. So how much money we've saved, how much more we can do, right? That's why we're able to react like that when the chess comes. We allocated originally 80-90 crores. Now we spent 130 crores.
So this will also prevent corruption in many ways.
It should, yeah. That's part of the ambition.